Geometry Dash is a super difficult game. Even just the concept of starting over from the beginning every time you die already makes the game pretty difficult, and the whole game is about improving your skill to beat harder and harder levels. And eventually people got to the point where they made their own levels that were harder than any levels made previously, and then beat them and released them for the world to see. And the community really focuses around these levels. They're kind of a beacon of accomplishment, like how far up can the difficulty ceiling be pushed. The community is so centered around the hardest level in the game that the demon list kept the community alive for almost 7 years when there were 0 updates to the game. Extremely famous levels like Bloodbath are now considered to be easy extreme demons, and even top ones that were made like half a decade later are not even considered to be among the top 50 hardest levels in the game. Firework was meant to dethrone Tartarus, and it hasn't even been 3 years since it's been verified, and it's out of the top 10. Speaking of Tartarus, that level's not even within the top 30 anymore, and the level that Tartarus dethroned, Zodiac, is not in the top 50 anymore. You might have even heard that Bloodlust was knocked out of the top 100, but it's all the way down to 106 now. Plasma Pulse Finale is a couple placements away from being knocked off the list entirely, and if you look at the Legacy list or the all-rated Extreme Demon list, Bloodbath's out of the top 500. I mean, Bloodbath was once considered impossible, nobody was able to beat it for months after Riot verified it, and now there's over 500 levels that are considered to be more difficult. The difficulty gap between the very beginning of the game and what was considered to be the hardest level about 9 years ago now, so Stereo Madness to Bloodbath, is way less than the difficulty gap between Bloodbath and the current hardest level Tidal Wave. Like, I remember when Bloodbath was considered to be not only the hardest level in the game, but the hardest level that would probably ever be made. And now if you beat Bloodbath, you're just seen as sort of an average player. Admittedly, an average player with a lot of patience, because Bloodbath is actually one of the most insufferable levels to play ever. There's a reason I stopped playing the level after getting 79. With all this change of levels that were once considered to be not only impossible, but like at the very limits of what a human is capable of, now only garnering like 100 or 200 views per completion. I've seen a lot of people wondering, like, is this game just like way too hard? Have we perhaps gotten a bit lost in the sauce as a community? I mean, we do still have quite the obsession with top ones, myself included, and literally the views. The view count on any video really about the latest top 1 would be proof of that. And then the actual picosecond that a level is no longer top 1, or just not really in the discussion, you get stuff like this Silent Club Sub completion, which has less than 10,000 views. The level didn't get any easier, it's just people stopped paying attention. So yeah, I've seen a lot of people wondering, is this game just too hard? And I've wondered that a lot myself, but overall, I think the answer is no. I don't think Geometry Dash is too hard as a game. It's just that what we focus on as a community is mostly just the hardest level completed. Because more people are focusing on that, there are more people who will take their shot at increasing the difficulty ceiling, and that cycle just kind of keeps on going. The actual game itself hasn't gotten any harder, it's just the ceiling for what's possible in the game, or I guess what's been at least accomplished in the game's community, keeps growing. That doesn't make anything that isn't an extreme demon any easier. It may be easier by comparison to the hardest level, but if the hardest level is always changing, then of course it's going to be different. In reality, Geometry Dash is not getting too hard, rising to the top play standards is. Unless we got like real CBF, but that's not the point. But yeah, if you're trying to be a top player and trying to improve your skill up to the point where you can beat something in the top 5, or even become a victor of whatever the level that is considered the hardest at the time is, then yeah, obviously that's getting harder. But that doesn't mean the game itself is necessarily getting more difficult to play. But if you're looking at it from the lens of I have to be at the top playing level, then yes, the game is getting harder. But the vast majority of players haven't even beaten an extreme demon. They're not even halfway to the point of being able to reach a demon list record. And I think we get too absorbed in the top play community standards, I guess. And so by comparison, if you say something like, oh yeah, my hardest is Future Funk, then you're considered a bad Geometry Dash player, which I think is bullshit, because even beating a demon takes a lot of time and dedication. Really, it's just a matter of comparison. A big part of it too is it's pretty difficult to measure difficulty with a system that was made 7 years ago, and yes, 2017 was 7 years ago, at which the difficulty gap between the easiest and hardest extreme demon was not nearly as much as it is today. I'm pretty sure the hardest demon at the time was something like Yatagarasu, which is, like 300 something at this point. It might just be easier to quantify how incredibly difficult the hardest levels in this game are if we had a more up-to-date system like more demon rankings above Extreme Demon, or tools like the all-rated Extreme Demons list that gained more popularity than tools like the Demon list. Because if you just look at the Demon list, even the language that we use to describe new levels being placed high on the list is that it pushes down the other levels. Which makes sense when you're looking at a list that is only meant to measure how difficult something is in comparison to the hardest level. Like, Slaughterhouse is at number 8 because there are 7 levels that are considered to be more difficult than it. But that doesn't mean that Slaughterhouse is any easier than it was 2 or 3 years ago. It's not any easier or harder since it was verified. It's still just as high up in difficulty as it was when it was verified. The difference is that focus is no longer on Slaughterhouse as a level. And so beating the level now would probably be considered to be less remarkable or less impressive. When really it isn't. It's still an extremely difficult level that only really a handful of people are even able to complete. There's just only so much attention that every completion can get. But I guess the main takeaway from this more rambly video, the game itself isn't getting any harder, barring any weird physics changes that RobTop has up his ass. But it is more difficult to stand out as one of the best players because what it takes to become one of the best players is always changing. And that's perfectly fine. Super Mario Bros. Isn't getting more difficult because the top speedrunners are doing it in shorter and shorter amounts of time. Speedrunning itself is not getting any harder either. But yes, becoming a top speedrunner would be more and more difficult because the bar is set higher and higher. Also, if a random bloodbath completion comes across your recommended, just click on it. And you know what? Leave a nice comment. It's still an impressive achievement, even if it's not a world record. Unless the like to dislike ratio is like 50-50, then it might actually be hacked. Thank you all so much for watching today's video. I know it's a bit more rambly, but honestly, I just kind of wanted to talk about this because it's been on my mind since all of these levels have made it out of the top 50, top 100, whatever. If you did enjoy this video, please remember to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton and all that. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye!